Hi everyone, and welcome to today's GG&A webinar on donor analytics and gift officer strategy. I'm Lana Buseman from the marketing team here at GG&A, and we're very excited for you to join us. Before we begin today, I just want to go over some technical details. We ask that you please log into WebEx before dialing in. Once you launch the webinar, a window will appear on your screen similar to what you see on slide 1. If you've already called in, please hang up and follow the instructions in the window to dial in. That way we can associate your phone with your name. During the session, your phone will be muted. However, we may ask some yes or no questions during the presentation. Please look at the slide on the screen to see where you can answer yes or no, or use the raise your hand feature. We also encourage you to use the chat panel shown on slide 3 in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen for any questions or comments during the session. Please notice that we ask you to direct your question to all panelists so that the presenter and I can see it and field it. If at any point during the webinar you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please send me an email at lbuseman@grunsclear.com or call our meeting provider WebEx directly at 866-229-3239. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kat.
Thank you, Lana. I'm just going to switch it over here. 1 second. Well, I have the great good fortune of being able to work with data and people both, which is a huge joy in my life. And today I am combining those things in getting to work with Angela Young as we talk about using data in gift officer strategies. So when I think of donor data from the prospect research and management side, I think of people as donors, but also as statistics and trends, where they live, what they give to, what they've demonstrated interest in, how old they are. And individually, this comes up in a donor's profile. But in the aggregate, a donor database provides powerful insight into the donor pool as it is and what it might become. And today, I am joined by Angela Young, who is the Vice President of, here we are, sorry about this, guys. Oh, there we go. Who is Vice President here at GG&A and her current local chapter president of AFP in Houston. And Angela, could you tell us a little bit about your background as it relates to managing gift officers and also being involved in strategic planning?
Sure. Well, first of all, Kat, I'm super happy to be here today. And I have had the opportunity to serve in multiple major gift roles myself. I oversaw regional territories as well as units within a university and healthcare settings. Specifically Rice University, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and Baylor College of Medicine within Houston, Texas. I eventually oversaw small and large teams of major gift officers at Rice. During that time, Rice was in their $1 billion centennial campaign, and I served on the leadership team that assisted with the strategic plans for the campaign, as well as an overall self-study of the entire development office.
That is much, and we are so grateful that you are here today. Since we are doing this as a flash series in which we're going to do everything soup to nuts in about 20 minutes, we invite you to send in your questions, but if we're not able to get to them, we'll follow up. So feel free to send in the questions. We'll field as many as we can at the end. But we'll also follow up with you individually and be sending everyone today's recording and the deck both. So we're going to try to touch on 3 things today in our conversation. Donor data as it relates to gift officer management and managing those teams, using donor data in long-term strategic planning, and then we're going to touch at the end on augmenting data with surveys. So as a first question for you, Angela, updating information in a donor database is always a challenge. Everyone is strapped for time, and the last thing anyone wants to do is sit down and put in information in the donor database. So what were the key things that you looked for when managing gift officers in the database, and what were the things you wanted to be able to track?
Great question. So I wanted reliable information. I definitely put quote-unquote reliable information that could give me a feel for how a gift officer was making progress as well as their productivity. I really view productivity and progress in two categories, even though they kind of sound very similar. Productivity is actually doing the action. For example, how many visits were they going on? What kind of visits were they? I want to see call reports and then the next steps from those call reports. When you make a solicitation, enter the proposals, whether it be verbal or written, and estimate the closure amounts with high and low amounts. And please, always estimate the closure dates, too. This information also helps a manager see how the prospects are being moved through the engagement steps and through the donor life cycle. If progress is being made to actually getting you closer to closing the greater gift, that's where I see it's progress as opposed to just productivity. If progress is not being made, then it may be time to refine the strategy or recognize that maybe a certain individual may not be a prospect at all. How is the field officer actually working their portfolio? You can see this through data as well. Is the entire portfolio in qualification? Then gift closures may not occur for a while. Does it seem that everyone is in cultivation? This might be a sign that the officer is reticent or nervous about soliciting. So if that's the case, you may need to have a conversation with someone. Anyway.
Right, so being able to see the stages and the activity towards those stages really allows you to forecast the year in some ways as to the likelihood of closure and in some cases the amounts.
Absolutely.
And we included here just a couple example dashboards, and we'll be sending these out, but of ways to see the data as a manager for your team and also on an individual basis. And related to that, could you talk a little bit about how you as a manager and also from the other side as a gift officer would prepare for your one-on-ones with your direct reports and then for the people you were reporting to?
Sure. So one-on-ones can be an amazing tool to have ongoing strategy conversations. But on the flip side of that, it can also be a meeting that can actually lose value to participants. And I say that in all candor. If a one-on-one consists of a field officer just reporting what they are doing, which oftentimes I think that's what happens, you can view that on a dashboard. So quite honestly, it's really kind of not the best use of time for either the field officer or the manager. So I found that if I, as a manager and as a field officer, prepared for the meeting and actually drove the agenda, there was more strategy and dialogue. So this may not be what every manager wants to hear because we are definitely already busy, but it was so true for me. I would review all the call reports and truly inquire about the visits and discuss next steps. Now, this would require the officers to input their information into the system, or we had nothing to discuss. So I actually used our one-on-ones as a tool to enforce that data was being entered. And I was a stickler for this, and I would actually cancel some of the meetings if the prep work had not been done.
And how long would it take you to prep for a one-on-one, to have read through all of the call reports and assuming the call reports were done, assuming there was activity, right. How long would that take you as a manager to prep?
Well, to answer that honestly, it was ongoing.
Sure.
I would literally print out whatever call reports were done for the day and kind of read them either early in the morning or in the evening. So it was just one of those things. If I always had a folder of call reports, I always had a folder of stuff that wherever I was, I could read it. So.
And what would you be covering differently weekly versus monthly for one-on-ones?
So weekly is often the strategy and next step conversations, because I think that these are often changing. They're always changing. And then, of course, depending on the seniority of a field officer, is if you have weekly, biweekly, or monthly one-on-ones as appropriate. Additionally, when you're having monthly conversations related to productivity, evaluations are never a surprise. So that's just one thing I wanted to put on the side. I caution if productivity is only being reviewed annually or even semi-annually, because often it is just too late to course correct at that time. I would say at furthest have quarterly conversations about productivity. One more item to note that is very important about reliable information is that as leaders in the development office, your CEO, your president, even your VP may request information at any time. And I needed to be able to pull a report and update or predict gift closures or program success in a very timely manner. I'm sure we've all had these requests come upon us, and you want to be able to trust the information you are reporting and have it be as real-time as possible.
So that you are trusting the information in the database and you are a trusted source of information.
Exactly.
As an individual. So
yes, we hope in both situations.
one hopes. So one of the things that we can see in the aggregate when we look at a donor database is where people live. How have you seen geography as a driver for planning regional strategies?
So I think it's very common for development offices as well as field officers to review your donor base and identify where you have the most prospects.
Sure.
And additionally, review the ones with highest capacity, also inclination to give, because you definitely need to do this in advance, because if you do not have an assigned travel budget, you're going to need to plan your year and make sure that you have the funds of where you need to go. Now, however, I have seen some shops that are looking even beyond the development department to make some of these strategic plans that you asked about. For example, at Rice, we created a larger regional committee to include not just development and alumni affairs, but expanded to include partners in admissions, public affairs, athletics, and the business school, any entities that were viewed as separate. Now, we in development know that utilizing all of these partners is so impactful and helpful in the process. It helps the institution create an image and a presence in an area that also lends itself to what we want, which is cultivating prospects. At Rice, we also found that these various divisions that used to work in silos were much more amenable to partnering due to budgets. So if the conversation can include little carrots such as, I don't know, saving money, everyone is more willing to be collaborative.
And Rice did it around geographic planning and expansion, but presumably you could try to do the same thing around a whole range of demographics if you have incoming bubbles of admissions.
Correct.
So you're going to have a huge age group or sunsetting programs or something like that, being able to do more comprehensive strategies institution-wide.
Exactly.
Would be a wise savings.
It would be. You can even look at, of course, we discussed the volumes of numbers and just depending on actually going, period, but this information can help you decide who should go. So, for example, if the number of young alumni or unqualified individuals is very high, then you may want to send an annual giving officer to focus on more group activities and really ramp up volume of productivity. However, if you have the top 3 donors in an area, you want to be sure that your assigned director of development are going and seeing them. Additionally, development offices are really looking at the various skill sets and what they may need just at a specific time in their year or in their campaign or non-campaign. For example, if you've just come out of a campaign and you have a lot of open pledges and you know that you're going to need to be doing a lot more stewardship, then you may invest in your stewardship department to ensure that current donors are receiving these updates, making their pledge payments. This really assists the field officers because they are still out there having to find new money, in addition to making sure that their current donors are happy. One thing I definitely want to bring up too is, in addition to staff you may need in the area, the data can assist with your programming. For example, a geographical region could have a high number of donors to a certain type of program, and so you'll want to bring that star of that program to give a lecture. Definitely utilize these types of trends to assist with programming.
And that would be true in terms of the programming, the staffing, and your own internal long-term budget for how you would plan to see all of these programs executed, what you need to staff up for, and be able to plan for the future on that.
Absolutely.
In the last few minutes that we have together, I just wanted to ask a little bit about if and when and how you've seen surveys used to augment or make use of what's in the donor database.
Yeah, great concept, actually. These can be wonderful tools. And 2 examples come to mind. One was a large hospital that was about to embark on a new capital project, and they needed to find out if they actually, had prospects for this project, and they needed help identifying them. So a phone survey was actually what was decided upon. Several thousand high-capacity prospects were called, and from that, over 700 individuals identified the hospital as a top 3 charity, kind of their top 1, 2, or 3. And over 500 said that they wanted to know more about the new project. Well, my gosh, this allowed the field officers to follow up on these calls, and what went to a cold call and that would have taken years to get these numbers was immediately a warm call, and they were able to just jump right into the process. It was actually really well done. Another example is from several higher education organizations that we work with use in-person surveys as a way to give gift officers the chance to meet and qualify prospects without it being such an obvious qualification call. I know we often reference getting into someone with I'd like to know your opinion as a tool to open the door, but then do we really take that opinion back? So when you're utilizing a survey, you can actually, A, use it as a tool to get in the door, and B, come back with very well thought out survey information, and so it's a win-win.
That's great. And starts from a certain population within the donor database.
Yes.
That you have identified based on data, we need more info or a way into this pool.
Correct.
And then uses it within.
Correct.
Well, Angela, I thank you so much for your time today. We have a couple questions that we're not going to be able to get to in the time we have, so we'll follow up with a few of you individually. As a plug for the future, we have the next 2 Flash series coming up in the next few weeks. Joseph Calgar on building a real-time affinity score, Jennifer Filla, a good friend of ours, on doing speedy research verification, And if you were intrigued by the concept of surveys and are part of the APRA community, I'll be doing a whole webinar on how to build and execute such surveys in a few weeks through APRA. As I said, we will be sending today's recording, today's deck, to all of you who were on the line and registered. But if questions come to you late in the night or you want to follow up individually around coaching ideas, anything like that, Angela is available by email, and we'll welcome your calls.
Absolutely. Please do.
Angela, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your wisdom. And thank you to all of you for joining us. We hope that this has been a helpful time together.
Thanks a lot.